issue was directed at my father.
Oh, nice. All right, I'm gonna call the zoning board of appeals, Town of Dayton Zoning of Appeals, regular meeting, Wednesday, October 26, 2022. It is 7:04 PM at the Prime Time Building at 1059 Somerset Ave, Dayton, Mass. 02715. And I'll call the meeting to order. All stand, say the pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so next thing on the agenda is, I don't know if you wanted, Marguerite's already told you a few dates that possibly work for her. Would be confirming the next meeting date. I'm okay with the 30th of November. I don't know if the other members are good with that date.
Fine with me?
You would?
Fine with me.
All right, so that meeting works, Zach, works for you as well?
Yes, it does, yeah.
And you'll let us know where it's gonna be held?
Yes,
Okay.
most likely it'll be here.
All right, she'll find a remote for the air conditioning, but
Yes.
okay, so we're good there, all right.
Probably be snowing.
Yeah, that's right, we're gonna want, we'll be good.
I guess, all things being equal, I'd rather it be warm in there than freezing.
Got a point, got a point. All right, so we're gonna go out of order. We're gonna go to approve the meeting minutes of September 22nd, 2022. Has everybody had a chance to read the minutes?
Yes.
Is there any questions, concerns?
No, I'm good.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 22nd.
So moved.
Okay, so it's been approved. Jonathan Gale was made the motion. And
You feel.
Dave Phillips, second, and all in favor? Aye.
We have
Greg
to do
Logan,
that.
aye.
I'm sorry.
Roll
Oh,
call.
sorry, just a quick question. I know, I forget if it was you or Marguerite who mentioned, with me being remote, a roll vote is needed, a roll vote would be needed. Is that just when I have a vote, or does the entire board by default also have to do a roll when one person is remote?
The entire board will have to because one person is remote.
Yeah, so Greg Logan, yay,
Dave Phillips?
yes,
Susan Kutcher, yeah.
Jonathan Gale, aye.
unanimous.
And Zach.
And Zach, you're good with it, right, bud?
Yes, yep. Thank you, Zachary Guy.
So move, so that's gonna be November 30th at 7 PM, possibly at prime time.
Okay.
So all we got now is meeting adjourned, right?
No.
So we have the new business, but we're still waiting on Marguerite, public input and correspondence. We do have Nancy Goulart here, Zach, if you would like her to put some input in on this while we're waiting on,
Absolutely, yeah, if she has anything that's unrelated to this, or.
Yes.
Or related, either way.
there is some stormwater stuff, if I believe that might be what she's here for.
Actually, it's Board of Assessors.
Board of Assessors.
Yeah, hi Zach. This is about Stonegate Landing. We understand they have withdrawn without prejudice and they're gonna start over again. And you saw the letter and all the documentation from the audit over and done with as far as the Board of Assessors goes. However, a couple of emails came in and I didn't see Carrie copied on these, so I printed them. And I don't really know the relevance of some of this, but I'm gonna leave these with Carrie so that if this comes up sometime in the future. The first one is October 11th at 12:04 PM. And this is Richard Federoff writing to Attorney Lorraine Rossi. Mr. Federoff says, I have reviewed the letter and attachments since September 28, 2022 by Eric Easterday, Chairman, Board of Assessors. I believe that the audit conducted and the conclusions made are accurate. Reference is made to the first page of the audit entitled as of 9/22/2022. The only corrections I would make are as follows. Listed under Stonegate Landing LLC, are parcel 9-3-C and parcel 9-4-C. Both parcels are in Phase B and belong to Able Realty LLC. To the best of my knowledge, there is nothing recorded at the town that belongs to Able. So again, I'm just letting you know about this. Parcels listed below through Stonegate parcels initially assessed to Able Realty or J. Bullen's trustee belong to Able Realty LLC with a single exception, parcel 9-56-S was never conveyed to Able Realty Trust. Those taxes belong to Stonegate Landing. Same comment on this, there is nothing in their name at the town of Dayton, Able Realty. Bottom line, as of 9/22/2022, Stonegate Landing owes $2,046.44, and Able Realty owes $40,515.57. Until those outstanding taxes are paid, we are dead in the water. The ZBA will not accept any application for project change, schedule any public hearing, or hold any public meetings regarding Phase B until all the outstanding taxes are paid. Also, the second quarter FY23 taxes are due November the 1st, 2022. How do your clients wish to proceed? Best regards, Richard. So the next email is, this was October 11th. October 20th, Attorney Rossi is writing back to Mr. Fedorov. Hi, Richard. I'm not ignoring you. I have been straight out busy. I have not had a chance to look at what the town determined, so I haven't looked at your email either. I'm hoping to get to this over the weekend or Monday. Thank you, Lorraine. And then the next one is October 24th, and this is Mr. Fedorov writing to Attorney Rossi. Good afternoon, Lorraine. Monday has arrived. I sincerely hope that you have found time to review both the information provided by the Board of Assessors and my review. As I said, we are dead in the water as regards any project change. There is another issue we need to discuss. Able Realty LLC deeded Phase B back to Stonegate Landing LLC on 10/29/21, book 274, book 27477, page 180. I just discovered that prior to that conveyance, a writ of execution on money judgment in the amount of $63,783.55 was recorded at the Bristol Registry, book 27335, page 1. As of today, no discharge has been recorded. I want to remind you that the second quarter fiscal year 23 taxes are due Tuesday, November the 1st. Let's get the ball rolling. I have no idea what that whole thing is about that, but maybe you could ask Marguerite, because, and again, they're insisting that there is property that is owned by Able. Able paid $300,000 for Stonegate. Then they found out couldn't buy it, it shouldn't even have been sold. Instead of moving the $300,000 back to Able, there was a $10 fee assessed that in effect got the name of the property moved back to Stonegate. Why anyone would do that and leave $299,990 out there? Because at the present time, no matter what they say, I checked with Stephanie today before I came to the meeting, we have nothing recorded in the name of Able. Now, obviously, when the sale, what they thought was a sale, took place, there was tax liability shifted to Able. Now, whether or not they know that, I have no idea. The tax liability was Stonegate. So I just wanted you to know, these emails came in. I don't understand the significance or what that $60-some thousand represents. And, but again, as far as the Board of Assessors is concerned, we're done. What you asked us to do has been done. I'll leave these with Carrie. If and when they come back again, first of all,
That's all gonna get switched back into the.
They're gonna start from scratch.
Yeah, well, the other thing too is, as you can see from this, somebody seems to think the majority of that property belongs to Able. Not if it's not registered, not if it's not with the town. So, again, this is just an FYI,
So these properties that they're talking about that are able, they're actually houses on it?
no,
Yeah, so you're never gonna get a permit regardless of this, because the way this was worded is a comprehensive permit, that this must have been in federal office hands through the entire development, there's no other builder. But when he tried to do that, he went down to Jim, and Jim says, I can't give you a permit for this because you already sold the land. And that's gonna be what this confusion is, but no matter what, they still owe the tax.
yeah, so it just, it's a little ironic, it's a little comical that the person that we say owes the 42,000. And I will, certainly, that lot that he's talking about, that he says he owns 2,000 on, yeah, we'll take that money. But the other 40-some thousand is still his liability.
And it sounds like though, from the letters that they're acknowledging at this point, it is their liability. In that last letter you read, it sounds like they're acknowledging that. And I'm wondering if there was a pending sale or something that didn't go through. And that's how they based the first figure on, and then in that last letter, it was pulled back.
Could be.
So, because if you think about
That
it,
stuff.
they're agreeing in that last letter that is the responsibility of them, the 2,000
Well, the agreement,
So I have a feeling there's a sale that didn't go through. The other thing that I would question, which we're not even gonna get into because they haven't brought it to us, is whether or not these are 40B lots. Because that's the other part of this, there was an issue with the 40B component and whether or not they ever spoke to DHCD and got authorization to ever even do any of this.
the only thing, based on these emails, the only thing that Mr. Federoff is agreeing to, that he owes roughly 2,000 and change, plus whatever hits on November the 1st. And he's telling Able they owe the rest.
No, I think in that last letter, they said it is the responsibility of Stonegate, the 41,000.
No, that's Mr. Federoff talking to Able,
Right.
just the opposite. The only thing Mr. Federoff says he owes is $2,046.44. And Able Realty owes $40,515.57, okay? So, Zach,
But that's it
This
right
is-
now, not to cut you off.
not only that,
Able Realty right now doesn't exist.
they exist, but they're not landowners in the town of Dayton.
That's what,
I mean, you can't build somebody,
Well, that whole development was supposed to stay in Federoff's name. All permits would be pulled in Richard Federoff and everything. So these particular pieces, so what happened is they went down one time, I don't know, a while back, and he had sold the parcels to a person and they built the houses against it, but the comprehensive permit was for.
I heard that.
So then now it sounds like that when Jim said, I can't give you the permit for this because this is not under Federoff, this is under Able. They came in front of us with their tail between their legs and they were talking to us in regards to this and we were like, listen, you know you did wrong. Whatever you're gonna do, switch it back. Obviously, they didn't do it all.
And at least one of those parcels, Dave, was the 40B parcel. And they never provided any authorization or approval from DHCD saying that they could do anything with that parcel.
Right.
So that's a whole other part of the equation.
So, like I said, at least he knows there's something going on. You're gonna email him back in regards to this with these letters. I'm sure they already have them.
what Board of Selectmen, Board of Assessors is not gonna respond to any of this. Mr. Federoff has copied us on this. I assume it's for informational purposes. The town wants the 42,000 and change plus whatever's going, and we know it's gone up, that was September's number, and we know it increases every day, so it's more than the
2
42.
weeks, we're gonna go back up again 3 weeks.
And if the intent is, he's only gonna pay the 2,000, and he's going to tell the others they gotta pay it. I don't know how you pay taxes on property you don't own. But again, that's their
So he said he went down the registry deed and recorded it. So what I,
That was the $10.
Okay, what our record show in the assessor's office was Stonegate sold property to Able Realty. Now, it's not Able Realty, I think it's Able something else that was supposed to be developing this project. And that name really hasn't been incorporated or anything, because they were waiting to see if they were gonna get permission. We had that discussion at one of the meetings, you know. So the town records show Stonegate sold property across the street to Able for $300,000. That's at the register. Then they found out you can't sell the property. So there was a $10 payment from, let me think, Able to Stonegate to get the land, selling it back and getting the deed changed. But my point was, it was $300,000 to buy the land that, number one, it couldn't be sold, so it shouldn't have been bought. But then to change the name on the deed, there was a $10 transfer. That doesn't move all that land to Able, right? So that put everything back as far as our records show. All of the property went back to Stonegate. Now, Mr. Federoff mentions a couple of things here, which obviously we've checked out and we don't see a problem with it. Mr. Federoff is saying at this point, he owes the town $2,000 and change in back taxes, based on the list, it's on the list that we gave you.
And Able
And then
owns the
he'll
balance.
owe taxes more as of the 1st of November. And he's telling Attorney Rossi that Able owes the $40-some thousand, $40,515.57 in taxes to the town. Just thinking back also, when I first came to the board and we talked about we're gonna do an audit, Attorney Rossi had made payments to the town of Dayton between $5,000 and $6,000, and initially she said, all the taxes are paid. And it was based on that information that the, Mr. Cusson came before the Board of Assessors. And Mr. Federoff was there. Attorney Rossi was not there, and neither were the three men from Able Realty. And it was based on her statements that all the taxes were paid, and then we said we were gonna conduct an audit, that she asked me to come to your board and try to convince you to move ahead. And I said, no, all right? So now what we know is the outstanding taxes truly are the $42,000 and change. Town says they're the liability of Stonegate.
That's right.
Whatever names or whatever they wanna throw out there. The other thing is, in looking at this whole thing, Mr. Karen, I request permission to speak to, Attorney Mitchell.
Yes, of course, yeah.
Okay, Attorney Mitchell, in what I read, which were some emails that came in from, they're Stonegate talking to the attorney for Able, and we were copied on them. We really don't know why, because, like I said, the audit's done, it's over, we know what we're looking for, but I'm gonna leave these so that you can review them, but there's a clause in here that doesn't mean much. Attorney Rossi had said she had been busy, but by Monday, this is dated October 24th, she hoped to be able to look at the audit that the town did showing all the parcels and all the money. So this is Mr. Federoff writing to her, October 24th. Good afternoon, Lorraine. Monday has arrived. I sincerely hope that you have found time to review both the information provided by the Board of Assessors and my review. As I said, we are dead in the water as regards any project change. There is another issue we need to address. Able Realty LLC deeded Phase B back to Stonegate Landing LLC on October 29th, 21. This is the $10 switcheroo. And it's been recorded. I just discovered that prior to that conveyance, a writ of execution on money judgment in the amount of $63,783.55 was recorded at the Bristol Registry, book and page number. I want to remind you that second quarter fiscal, as of today, no discharge has been recorded. And then he reminds Mr. Federoff reminds Attorney Rossi that November 1st is the next set of taxes. So the question we have is, what is a writ of execution on money judgment? And does that have anything to do with anything that the town is involved with or the board is involved with?
So it likely, it's a form of a lien of some sort, but as I was able to see it, I couldn't tell you who's involved in it and what it relates to.
Okay,
And my sense is that The reason he's bringing this up is if it was recorded prior to the transfer from Able back to Stonegate, then he's probably trying to make the argument that it's an Able lien, and that Able is responsible for that lien. I don't know, I haven't seen it, I'd have to try to do some research on the registry of records, which if the town wants me, the board wants me to do that, I certainly can. I don't know that Mr. Federoff would be willing to fund that work, because any work I do for Stonegate typically goes through 40B consulting account, so it would probably have to be something I'd need to charge to the zoning board separately. But that's something I'm happy to take on and at least search preliminarily and see what we have.
Okay, before you do that, I'm gonna suggest that I ask Stephanie if she can access the records. Go in there and see what it says, and look at that information to Kerry, and then that'll save you some time.
Absolutely.
I think that we're jumping ahead, and this was without prejudice, this was removed without prejudice. And, or with prejudice, and I think that there's nothing for us to have Marguerite do at this point
And that's exactly what I'm saying.
until they bring it back up, or if they bring it back up. And then if they do, yes,
But it sounds like he's trying to do it before.
And my point in bringing this up, as I said, I brought this up as a, public input from informational purposes only. I'm not looking for this board to make any decisions. But because this was copied to the Board of Assessors, and we didn't know what that was, that's why I asked if, Margaret could explain to me what it was. Now that I know that it could be a lien, the assessors have access to that. So what the assessors will do is now follow it up at the registry. Whatever info we get, we will give to Kerry, and you will be advised so that you know going ahead. Again, everything that I have presented is only for information, because this came out of the blue, and it doesn't really mean much to us as assessors, but now we know where to go with it, okay? And I will leave these emails with Kerry. Review.
Let Stephanie know it would have to be prior to the date of the transfer of sale back to Stonegate.
Before the $10, okay,
So prior to that October 29th date,
yeah, okay,
which
very
we will
good,
be looking at.
okay, thank you very much, thank you,
Yeah, thank you.
thank you.
okay.
All right, Zach, we do have Marguerite here now. And, so, do you wanna open up business, review and discuss the act?
Yeah, if you want to go, okay.
So we're gonna review and discuss the act with, Eden Kelly on Stone Ridge Homes, INC for Stone Ridge Estates, release of bond. There's yours. All right.
So just to touch base, I think we got a number from Peter Williams as far as engineering, the amount of engineering items left. All three of those items have been completed.
These have,
So I think, I assume he'll have to send a little letter saying that they're done, but they have been completed. He's been sent, pictures and updates and things like that.
Okay.
There were all three of them were landscaping items, we had a little bit of seeding to do, some bushes to trim. And
outlet channel, the detention basin.
yeah, so all three of those were done. Marguerite and I have been working on the legal piece of things. We have made a significant amount of progress. I gave her an update today that that 4 of the 6 deeds that need to be updated have been recorded. That the 5th one has been recorded, but I need to send her the information for it. So for the parcel A, updated deed, and the last one is an affordable home that needs to have the deed rider signed by the affordable buyer to do the confirmatory deed. So she'll be bringing that into the town hall, have it notarized, which I've told her to leave it here for me, and then I'll come pick it up and get it recorded for her. So I don't think Marguerite has been able to come up with an amount for the legal, the items that are legal that are left. Assuming that Peter Williams' number is 4,000, I've suggested to release down to 20,000. assuming that 16,000 would be more than enough to cover the difference. One of the open items, which I believe that Marguerite has been in contact with the chairman about, was the question about past reports. We put together a number that we think is a fair estimation. Marguerite has counted that there were 60 reports that needed to be sent in over the past 5 years. We gave a price based on our engineer's time and that number of reports. I gave her some information supporting the cost from our engineer. And so what we've suggested is making a donation to the Affordable Fund, or a contribution to the Affordable Fund of $3,000 to
3360.
3260.
No, 32 or 33.
3360.
As Owen just said, Marguerite and I did ask a bit about this yesterday. I am more than satisfied with that figure. I told her obviously I couldn't speak on behalf of the board, but she wanted to kind of get a gauge as to, should she have more work done, look into this at all, or did I feel like that was sufficient? And based on our discussion, I do think it's sufficient, but again, I'm not the only board member on this, so if anyone else has any other opinions, I can go ahead and share it.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. I think we have to get the same 3 voting members on this matter.
Yeah, so, I'll go back through my notes, but I know that, during the course of this, proceeding, Greg, you've recused yourself and so has Jonathan.
Yes, I have.
So I believe our voting members right now are Zach and now I'm trying to remember which of the other two.
Zach.
Alice is in it or not?
I have them.
Margarita, you do?
Zach,
Alice is-
Susan, and Elise.
Yeah.
Elise is not.
Elise.
So we can appoint another member, will you, if the member was here at the last meeting?
They need to have been here for all of them. David, have you been here for all of them?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So we could appoint David instead of Elise.
Zach, Dave, and Amy? No, excuse me.
Zach, Susan.
Yeah.
And then it was Elise.
Right, so it would be Dave.
Okay, Dave, Zach, okay. And then,
So we need Susan and Zach to take that vote, so it would require a majority vote to appoint David as a voting member.
so does he have to say, it, or want me to say it?
You can't, because you recused yourself.
One of the two of you needs to make a motion, the other one needs to second it.
I make a
Well, you
motion,
can't make a motion
For
either,
yourself.
because for yourself.
Oh.
So it needs to be
Susan or-
Zach or Susan.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm making a motion, but I just couldn't hear. Did anyone have any discussion to add to that figure?
Not yet. We're just trying to appoint voting
Yeah,
members.
get the members going. So you're gonna appoint him, Jack? Zach?
Yes.
Are you making a motion?
Are you
to-
making a motion? Yeah, go ahead. Are you gonna make a motion?
to substitute David as a voting member for Elise.
Okay, I make the motion that we substitute David as a voting member for at least for this matter.
Susan, second.
Susan seconds.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, Zachary Kline.
Aye, Susan Pritchard.
Okay, that's it. You're the only two who can vote.
Okay.
All right, so David, now you're substituted.
Alright.
Okay, so now we can talk about, now you have the ability, Mr. Chairman, to talk about the proposal with the voting members.
Okay. So I obviously already said what I had to say about my thoughts on it. Anyone else have any thoughts they want to share?
I
Voting
voted, so there's,
No.
when you go to public, I can.
I agree with Zach.
All right, and I think I'll make a motion that we accept.
Can we go?
So hold on, we gotta go to public input, Zach. So you gonna make the motion
Yeah.
to go into, we're gonna get public input, or we don't need a motion?
You don't need a motion for that.
So we're gonna go into public input now, okay? All right,
So this is Jonathan Gale speaking on behalf of the trustees of Stony Brook Estates. And my question is, and maybe Owen or Mark can answer this for me. I know you said that it would be that fee of, or the amount of $3,360 paid into the Affordable Housing Fund, or the 40B fund. In some of the conversations I've had with one of our other trustees, Diane Sunderland, she mentioned a figure for the development that she was in discussion with. I don't know if it was with you, Owen, or with Marguerite. But she had talked about a figure that was being worked out of $7,000.
So there's a separate figure for the reserves for the board, which will have to be paid to the HOA. That's a separate piece, that not to do with the reports.
Okay, and is that resolved yet, or are you?
So we come to an agreement, but I'll need to pay you, I'll need to give that to the HOA and then get a receipt from you guys.
So do you have that with you or not yet?
I don't have it with me here, I'll can bring it to the next meeting. Or I can resolve it with you before the next meeting.
Okay, you and I can go back and forth?
Yep.
And then, you and I seem to be able to communicate very well with each other quickly.
Sure.
So I think we can do that and hopefully get that resolved.
Yep, and then you guys can send Marguerite an email saying that you've received the funds.
And is that figure somewhere around there, something like,
I can't remember off the top of my head, but Marguerite and I have it agreed in email form, so I'll forward that email to you and then bring a check in that amount.
Marguerite, does that make sense to you?
I haven't, looked at it for this particular meeting, but I know it was something we had reviewed for a prior meeting. It just isn't something that, Owen and I have been discussing for the current meeting, so whatever that amount is, I think we had some input from Peter Williams as well on that.
So the only reason that, speaking again on behalf of the trustees, on one hand, I don't have a problem with going down to $20,000. On the other hand, the developer, along with the trustees, have all attempted to do our due diligence to have the 3 roads go to the public meeting for next Tuesday on the 1st for the special town meeting. There is the possibility that the roads will not be approved for whatever reason, even though the conditions have met, it still has to be voted on. And on that basis, because we could be left with the potential of plowing the roads for another year, at least because we would have to then regroup and come back in the spring to the regular town meeting, I would ask that figure be changed from 20,000 to 40,000.
Sorry, do you mind if I respond?
No, go ahead.
Marguerite, I think it would be a weigh-in on your piece, but I think that it was your determination that our obligation was to go for road acceptance one time, and that if it failed the road acceptance, by a vote of the town, that it would not be the developer's responsibility to return for another acceptance. So I'm definitely willing to hold more money for reasons tied to the permit, so that condition of the permit would have been met.
So, I feel like we're talking about multiple things here right now.
Right.
So we were talking about the proposal to resolve the issue with the inspection reports.
yeah, now
And that's separate from the request to have a partial release of the bond. The money being held by the town right now. There's the reason we're here tonight to begin with is that there's a request for an entire release of the bond, which is somewhere in the vicinity of $102,000, if I remember correctly. 100,000 plus, Owen, am I right?
Correct.
Yeah. And then there's now, I believe this afternoon you submitted, and I have not had a chance to look at it, unfortunately, a request to have a partial release. I was aware that Owen may be submitting that. I didn't know until I sat here just now exactly how much you were looking to release.
Yeah.
And I can address that in a moment, but I want to make sure we don't lose sight of the resolution on the inspection reports.
I think, speaking again on behalf of the trustees, all 3 of us will agree that those inspection reports do meet the expectation that the developer has done their due diligence.
I'm
with
sorry.
regard to the fence and the poles and so forth as well. And it has been, as he said, reseeded, it's been trimmed back, the brush has been cleared, that has been done.
That's not, so the inspection reports are about the inspections that should have been, that we think were occurred but hadn't been reported on to the town. It's not about the work that's still remaining under the release of the bond. So that was something that Peter Williams, in his cost to complete, provided an estimate on.
Yep.
As well to the board, I think that's in your packet of papers here. That's part of the underlying monies being held in bond by the town, that 100,000 plus number. The inspection reports were this condition associated with Exhibit B.
Okay,
Where if you
I'm thinking
recall,
different inspection.
right, where if you recall, there was concern raised and I was asked to look at it and I agreed that while the inspections appear to have been done regularly, the reports required to be submitted to the town, the Board of Health and the zoning board were never created. And you can't really recreate reports at this stage, but there is a way that the board could develop an equitable resolution on this. So
Okay.
that is where we had asked, or my suggestion, I think the board had asked, the developer to make a proposal as to what might be an equitable way to resolve this conditions violation. And what was presented to the board, I believe you have it in your packet, but I haven't looked through the packet yet, is that if not, it will come into the record, that there's, by my estimation, approximately 60 reports that were missed. That the developer believes that the cost for actually creating a report, well, the amount of time it would take to create a report on average was about a half an hour of time by a certain level engineer, not a supervising engineer, but a slightly lower level engineer. He has provided us with a rate sheet that shows that at their current rates, they pay that engineer $112.50 an hour, so half an hour would be $56 an hour. Multiplying that by 60 reports comes up with a number of $3,360, which is where the developer is making a proposal that they would contribute that money to the Affordable Trust Fund for the town to address what has been identified as a violation of a particular condition in the course of construction of this development. And as I indicated to the chairman when I spoke to him, and I will say to you now as a board, I think that there's justification around this proposal. I think that it does sound reasonable, as we're talking about 60 reports. On average, I think a half an hour's worth of time, many of those reports would probably look very similar. Some might have taken a little longer, some might have taken a little less. I think half an hour for 60 reports sounds fair and reasonable to me. And he has provided justification as to the rate associated with that report. So I did check with Peter Williams. I did it by email, so I didn't get a chance to fully explain to him all of the nuances of this. He believed that it would take approximately an hour and a half to do a report, but I think he was including some of the work associated with identifying the information to put in that report, and that's not what we found to be a violation. It was just strictly the writing of that report that was found to be a violation. So he indicated an average salary for an engineer was $160 an hour, but as the developer explained to me, and I don't disagree, it's not really what would be out in the marketplace, it's what would he have paid for this, that he is out of, that he gained in benefit. So I think that being provided with a rate sheet that shows how much he would have paid and something that justifies what engineer level would have written this report seems appropriate to me. If the board is inclined to accept this proposal, and if so, we'll check that off the list of to-do, and we are looking at both the request for the total release and potentially a request for a partial release, which I'll address separately.
So Peter Williams' figure, just doing the quick math in my head at 60 times, for the $180 an hour, 160, which would be $80 per half hour, divided by 60 is $4,800 potentially for the same amount of time versus the $3,360 the developers is quoting.
That's correct, but again, the concern with the violation is that the developer received basically benefited by not having to pay that cost. And it's the developer who would have been responsible for generating that report, and they would have had to pay their engineer. So it's not necessarily what would be the going rate in the marketplace.
Yep.
It would be what is the developer's rate, and the developer isn't even looking to say, over the last 5 years, my rates have changed, it will be this per year and this per year, they're just using the figure of their current rate, which is their FY '22 rate sheet, so.
Okay.
I don't feel that this was an, unsupported or inappropriate proposal for the developer to make.
Okay,
Yeah, nothing else.
So that vote is what probably needs to happen first, and then we'll get to the second request, which has to do with request for the partial release, and we can certainly obtain, public input.
you want, Zach would have to make the motion, right, because I stepped out.
Or Susan or David can make the
Susan or
motion to
David.
accept the proposal, and then we'll have to, did you have a time frame as to when you would make that contribution, Owen?
I can bring a check to the next meeting, or I can draw, actually, it's probably easier just to bring it to Karen.
I, David Phillips, make a motion to accept the 3360 from Mr. Kelly for the 40B trust fund.
Is there a second?
A second.
Okay.
Any
Susan
discussion?
Pitcher,
All in favor?
aye.
Names, Zach, gotta do names.
Gotta do names, because you
I, Dr. Karen?
have, okay,
Aye, Susan Pitcher.
I, David Phillips.
Alright. Alright, so now we can go on, Greg, you wanna carry on?
yeah, so now that's all, so the next thing we're gonna do, you want me to read any of this into the record, or this is stuff that you already done, all I don't need to do this, correct?
This is the packet of material for
Yeah, so
addressing
we
that.
just did the description of what, for the 3360, I already got through that. And based on the information that you and him going back and forth, which you discussed, I don't feel I need to do any of that.
Yeah, I think that Owen probably needs to submit the actual proposal, or did you copy Carrie on
I
it?
copied Karen.
Okay, so it just didn't make it into the packet yet, right? So it'll be in the next packet. Okay. So now I think there was some request filed this afternoon. I saw your name in my email, but I honestly haven't reviewed it, so.
Yeah, so our thought was, we have roughly 7,000 needs to be contributed to the HOA. We have 4,000 on Peter's list, until he gets it, until he sends his sign off, but it's incomplete. And, we've got the 3,300 contribution. So that brings us to about 14. And that leaves another 6,000 towards legal fees and things like that, which is where I came up with $20,000. Remember? I'm open to suggestions, but
So those three numbers that you threw out was $14,360, 330, it should be 60, because you have 3360.
right, correct.
So, I have two comments that I'm gonna make here. First of all, typically when the board has asked for a release of funds, when the board is faced with a release of funds from the bond, a partial release, not a complete release, but a partial release, they obtain both an updated cost to complete estimate from Peter Williams and a written recommendation from me. I haven't had a chance to put my recommendation together. I can give you a sense of where I'm at verbally on it, but I haven't had a chance to do that. One part that I'm thinking about is that I'm not sure when we're thinking of having the next meeting. So that may be something we want to talk about unless you've already done that tonight.
Yeah, we did November 30th.
Okay. Okay, and I
7
am
p.m.
available on November 30th now. Wait, I'm not. No, I'm not available. I may be available. I have another meeting that may or may not happen. But I can certainly provide the board with a letter of that prior to that date.
Okay.
The concern that I have is that the the comprehensive permit, when it was dealing with construction and partial release of the construction, had, and I have to explain this to Owen, had a 10% contingency piece built into it for 1 year after final build out. Now, that 1 year after final build out period has technically expired. It expired, and that was why we received the request for the entire release of the funds.
I thought the permit had to be, all permits had to be blocked, all your permits are done, like building
So the
permits.
way the final build out was defined in the comprehensive permit was that it would be the date that the last occupancy permit was
Correct,
issued,
yeah.
which was December of 2021. I think my sense was that the intention behind this 1 year after final build out piece for it holding 10% of the bond was because the expectation was that at the time the last occupancy permit would have been released, the majority of the work that was being bonded also would have been completed. That wasn't exactly the case. And you know, no one envisioned COVID, no one envisioned the changes in the economy, the delay and all of the things that have happened, you know, all of the stuff that's certainly come out. And no one envisioned that at the time that this was written. So at this stage, we're now actually down to what would have been presumably that last request to get you to the point of the 10% contingency. And then you'd be facing, once that 1 year after final build out period happened, or maybe slightly before that, you'd be facing a request from the developer for the remaining 10% to be provided. And that's when we'd be going through and dotting our i's and crossing our t's and doing the work that we're doing around legal stuff, around funding of the reserve accounts, around making sure if any conditions were violated, how are we resolving that, those types of things that we're doing right now. It's unclear from the language in the permit as to what exactly that 10% applies to. If you recall, this development was bonded in two parts. So phases 1, 2, and 3 were bonded and fully released. And then phases 3 and 4 were bonded, and that's what we've been working off of. And so 10% of phases 3 and 4, I'm just gotta find my rate folder here. This is partly why it's hard for me to do this on the spot. There we go. This is the original. So I believe phases 3, 4, and 5, I'm sorry, I was saying 1, 2, and 3, but it was phases 3, 4, and 5 that were bonded together. And I believe that their original bonding amount was $253,000. So 10% would put the board at about $25,000. Again, I hadn't seen the actual request being presented by the developer. It's possible the developer may say, right now as we talk about this, I'm willing to just leave it at that $25,000 and we don't have to have a further discussion.
That's correct.
Okay.
Correct.
That resolves a lot of things. However,
I'm melting.
because I just hadn't had a chance to have that conversation and see that, if we have that agreement, then that, my concern was simply around that 10% amount. I realize we're past the 1 year final build out, but I think that in spirit, that was a concept that was being, that was attempted through this condition, and I think that's what we're working on. And I also think we're within a meeting or two of being ready to approve the release of all of it. So I think we're close, things are certainly getting worked on. I appreciate that we've recorded some of the deeds. That was one of the pieces I wanted to check on. My concern, as I shared with the developer, was that the point behind this 10% is also to make sure that the little things that are still needed to be done really actually get completed. And not necessarily just that they're left for the town to do. And I do think that's what this developer wants to do. I'm not suggesting that they don't at all, but we just wanna make sure these are little things, but they're very important. For instance, the need, in the course of doing this, you discovered that a deed rider hadn't been recorded.
No, I had, but needed a new one signed
Okay,
with
an
that.
updated deed rider needs to be recorded. That's an important piece for the town to know, to maintain on this affordable unit going forward, is if there's ever any concerns around that unit in subsequent transfers, we'll be looking back at the deed riders and the language of those deed riders and making sure that they're all up to date. So these are pieces that the town wants to ensure are done correctly, and that's why we have this final review that we're doing, and that I appreciate the developers working with the board on. So if that's the case, I have not put together a letter, I was not able, obviously, to do that before today's meeting. If you want to take a vote to release all but, $25,000, in conditioned upon a recommendation from me to that, on that note, and I can try to get that in the next week or so. We can hold it, and we won't have to wait until the next meeting, or we can wait until the next meeting. I'll definitely have a letter in before that. I should have a letter in, as I said, in the next week or so.
Gonna make a motion.
Well, I think you need public input, but I think you were just
So
asking for mine.
my public input would be that I won't disagree with the $25,000, but until we have the final figures on the couple items involved from the developer, I know we're about 7,000 on one, we're at 3360 on the other. I don't forget what the last item was off the top of my head. But considering those items,
4,000 from Peter Williams.
yes, thank you very much. I would ask that, and because you don't have the final paperwork yet, and because we may, in the end, at the next meeting, you as the board may be voting to release the whole thing. If everything is completed and the payments have been made, or the developers here with checks, a motion can be made at that time to release the entire bond. In the meantime, you have a chance to look at the paperwork, make sure it's all in order, make sure that these last deed riders get taken care of. I would suggest holding off until the next meeting and doing it all at the same time, as a member of the public and on behalf of the trustees. Because as you said, we're almost there. I think just as a matter of making sure that everything is taken care of completely, and I will very clearly state that the developer, through the work of Owen in the past 2 months, has been, amazing. He's really stepped up and worked with us as the trustees to get everything taken care of. And we do appreciate that a lot, especially coming into the winter and getting everything on the special warrant. But I think that it would make sense to hold off and get everything done at the same time.
So I'd be happy with, I've got 2 checks that don't need to be brought to the next meeting, just be handed in person. I'd be happy with saying, receipt of those 2 checks, and confirmation of Marguerite. So as a condition to the release down to 25,000. So that would be a check to the board for the 3360 and a check to the HOA for their 7,000. And, assuming that when Marguerite gets the confirmation that both of those checks have been delivered, then she could authorize the release of the down to 25,000. That would mean that the board would be holding 25,000 for approximately $5,000 to $10,000 of work, which seems like a pretty fair buffer.
I think I could, speaking to the trustees again, I think that would be okay.
Any other input? Marguerite, you also have to do yours?
Yeah, so I think in my written recommendation, what I'm trying to do is confirm, I can tell you ahead of time if I'm not able to get this in writing, but I'll try to confirm the amount. We know 3360 is one of them, I just don't.
You came up with
can't
it
find
for me, we
Yeah.
had agreed on a number, I had a check at a previous meeting,
So whatever.
So I know that that's on the spending.
Yep, so whatever that is, I'll write that into my letter. If that's something that the developer's okay with for a condition, then that's how you can take a vote that way.
I can't make a motion.
I know, so we need,
All right, I make a motion to retain $25,000 from the bond. I don't know if I'm saying this right.
Yes, you are.
Is there a second?
wait, you need a condition.
Do the pending part.
With a condition of 2 checks being paid from Mr. Kelly, one for $33.60 and one for $7,000.
One for the remainder of the HOA funds per Marguerite's approval.
Maybe just receipt of 2 checks from Mr. Kelly to address the missing inspection reports and the reserve accounts for the stormwater management system.
2 checks from Mr. Kelly, receipt from Marguerite for release, holding the $25,000 for the release of the bond.
I second. Susan Pritchard.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Susan Pritchard.
I, David Phillips.
Aye, Zachary Harris.
Alright. Thank you.
That's it.
Do we have any correspondence? That's pretty much it,
So I'll
right?
reach out to you the next day or two.
Good.
Yeah, Marguerite and I will confirm that number. And I'll bring a check to HOA. You guys could just send an email confirming you received it.
Or take it over, drop it off, whatever.
Yeah.
Get it today and we'll go from there. Are you gonna make the meeting Monday night or Tuesday?
Okay,
Yeah.
so, I think that's all that's before the board at this stage.
Of course.
My hope would be that by the next meeting, Mr. Kelly and I go through our checklist ourselves and we are at a point where we might, we'll know what the remaining items are, if any. If there aren't any remaining items, then you should expect a letter from Peter Williams confirming that all work that he had on his punch list has been done, and I would submit a similar letter confirming that the comprehensive permit conditions have been complied with and fully addressed. And then at that stage, the request to release the remainder of the bond can be addressed by the board. And that would resolve what we've been continuing.
Because it's December 21, right? Is when it's been a year.
It's been more than a year.
Okay.
Yeah, December of 2021, so of 2020,
2020 was the last time.
December of 2020 was the last occupancy permit. It's been almost 2 years.
Okay. Anything else?
Not for me.
I make
Thank
a
you,
mo-
Greg.
Okay, I make a motion for adjourn because I can do that one.
Yes, you can.
Alright,
Okay.
do I get a second?
I second.
Second.
Susan Pritchard.
David Phillips.
Dave Phillips. Alright, Zach, I'll talk to you later, buddy.
Thank you, Zach.
Sounds good, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Zach.
Bye.
Are you gonna be there Tuesday night?
I feel like your
I'll
bottom is
just
so
use
bad, I
that.
shouldn't have worn this thing.
Sorry.
Things that might come up.
Right.
On Saturday, because-
Oh,
I also
yeah.
have to say that she probably-
No, that's-
Are you in virtual meeting?
I have all the other, talked to a couple people on the road who are all.
Some showed up.
This is
Are we
one.
still recording, Carrie?
I think
Are we all set?
to both of them. I said, that was the case, but how
We
we
do
do
it
it.
at the vlog, we do it at the parking lot.
Yeah, I swung by,
We would never make.
Jennifer McGrail's house, so lot 6, and she said, oh yeah, I'm gonna be there.
Time frame.
It's gonna be
12:30.